Just think. The same mother, the same father, twin brothers, yet the world accepted one and turned the other into a question. This is a story of pain, prejudice, and a love that proved stronger than every form of hatred. That night in 1982 is one that everyone present in the hospital's delivery room still remembers, one that can never be forgotten. Before the sound of crying, there was silence, a heavy, strange, unsettling silence. In a place where life should announce its arrival with a scream, that silence felt like a sin. The nurse lifted the first baby and paused for a few seconds longer than normal. Lines appeared on the doctor's forehead. The mother, exhausted beyond words, tried to raise her head. The father gripped her hand tightly. He didn't understand why his heart was pounding so fast. Then someone said in a very low voice, This isn't normal." That same night in an ordinary hospital, a secret was born, one that would change the lives of two children, one family, and everyone who had ever crossed their path. One womb, one moment, but two completely different realities. They were twin brothers, the same mother's womb, arriving in the world at the same moment, but against all the rules of medicine. One baby was black, dark-skinned, carrying an identity shaped by generations. The other was albino, skin white like milk, almost white hair, and strikingly bright blue eyes. But the thing that forced the doctor to sit down in his chair was this: both of them had exactly the same blue eyes. It wasn't just rare, it was incomprehensible. The doctor cleared his throat, asked everyone to stay calm, and ordered more tests. The mother began to cry. Were those tears of happiness, fear, or simply a mother's instinct? She herself didn't know. The father didn't cry. He kept staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what had already been written for his children in this world. Introducing the parents, names changed. The mother's name was Saima, a strong black woman, taught never to bow her head. The father's name was Kamal, a simple, hard-working man who believed that love and hard work could solve any problem. They had never prayed for a miracle, never wished for anything extraordinary. They only wanted healthy children. And now, they had something the world would stare at, question, and judge. A mother's first embrace. When Saima held both babies together for the first time, she felt something strange. It wasn't hatred. It was fear of the future. She kissed the black baby first, then the albino baby, and whispered something no one else could hear. Later, she would say, "In that moment, I promised that I would protect both of them equally, even if the worlds didn't." Hospital whispers and the first wound. In the following days, tests, more tests, complex terms, serious faces. One doctor said it could be albinism, but that it was extremely rare in twins like these. Another said, genetic mutation. A third used the word that would become permanently etched into the story, medical mystery. The local newspaper got hold of the news, a small article, and that was enough. Within days, strangers began coming to the hospital, some under the excuse of help, some just for photographs. One man asked, "Can I touch the white baby for good luck?" Saima refused. Kamal barely managed to control his anger. They decided they had to leave his place as soon as possible. Home and the first encounter with reality. After returning home, things turned out to be even harder. Neighbors whispered. Some looked with curiosity, some with suspicion. One woman said, "This is a punishment." Another said, "This is a sign of God." Saima closed the door and for the first time sat on the floor and cried. Twinhood, despite the difference. The babies began growing up in the same crib. They cried together, slept together, clung to each other. But soon the difference was no longer limited to appearance. The albino baby's skin was extremely sensitive. Sunlight hurt him. His eyes would water. The other baby was strong, facing the world with greater ease. Still, Saima treated them equally. The same clothes, the same love, the same embrace. She knew that one day the world would make the comparison itself, and that day arrived sooner than expected. The world taught Saima very quickly that difference isn't just something you see, it's something you feel. The first moment came outside the hospital. When the babies were taken for their first checkup, the nurse called only one baby by name. The other one? It was as if he didn't even exist in Saima's arms. It was a small thing, but small things like that leave marks on the heart. Kamal increased his working hours. Money was short and expenses kept rising. Special sunscreen, eye tests, medicines. He came home exhausted, but before going to sleep, he always stopped by the crib. He looked at both children and wondered, what kind of people will this world allow them to become? Names that were meant to become destiny. The babies' names hadn't been told to anyone yet. Saima kept delaying it. She said, I want to feel who they are first. A name is also a destiny. Months passed. People stopped coming as often. What was once curiosity slowly turned to distance. Some people stopped visiting altogether. Others became overly gentle, as if it wasn't sympathy, but pity. That pity hurt more than curiosity ever had. One question, one sentence, and a broken heart. One afternoon, Saima heard children's voices outside. A child asked his mother, why is that baby white when his parents are black? The answer came instantly and cruelly, because he is different. Saima slammed the window shut and pulled both her children into her arms. They didn't understand anything yet, but the world had already begun teaching them. 1 year and refusal. When the babies turned 1, the doctors asked again for permission. They wanted to use their case for research studies. They said, this will help other families. Kamal hesitated. Saima refused outright. My children are not experiments. That decision had a price. Some doctors became distant, checkups became difficult, but Saima did not bow. She was ready to face the unknown, but she would not let her children become specimens. A moment that changed everything. That same night, as she rocked them to sleep, Saima noticed something. The albino baby, despite all his fragility, was holding his brother's finger tightly, and the other baby was unconsciously turned towards him, as if trying to protect him. There were no words, no scientific explanation, but there, something stronger than any label existed. Saima understood. This story was not just about rarity, but about courage, love, and survival. And this was only the beginning. Learning to walk and the world speaking. When the children learned to walk, the world stopped just looking and started speaking. Saima felt it the day she took them to the neighborhood park. A simple place. Barefoot children, mothers sitting on concrete benches. She applied sunscreen to the albino child, put a hat on him, and held both their hands. At first, everything was fine. Then it wasn't. One child pointed and laughed. Another said loudly, how can they be brothers? One is black, one is white. Saima's heart sank. She was about to respond when a woman pulled her child away. Don't look. As if looking were dangerous, as if these children were wrong. It was the first time Saima wanted to leave a place because of her children. It wasn't embarrassment, it was fear. One wound outside, one inside. On the way back, the black child fell and scraped his knee. He cried loudly. The albino child began crying too, restless, even though he wasn't hurt. Saima knelt down, cleaned the wound, and hugged them both. One had blood flowing on the outside. The other, inside, was feeling his brother's pain. School, and a crisis of identity. At the age of 4, school began. Saima deliberately chose a small nearby school. On the first day, the teachers were confused. They said, maybe there's been a mistake in admission. Are they adopted? Saima replied firmly, they are twins. One teacher smiled. Another said, I've never seen anything like this. The children understood the difference immediately. The albino child was called Ghost. He looks sick. Some children were afraid to touch him. The other brother was told, he looks adopted. He can't be that white boy's brother. Slowly, both of them began to grow quiet. One sentence that broke a mother. One day, Sima saw the albino child hiding in a room, scrubbing his skin hard. She asked, "What are you doing?" The answer came, "If I were dark like my brother, they would like me." That night, Sima cried like she never had before, silently so the children wouldn't hear. She understood then, love cannot protect everything. With time, the roles began to change. The one who had once been a frightened child was slowly becoming the protector. Whenever the black brother saw someone laughing, teasing, or pointing, he did not stay silent. He would step in front of his albino brother. If someone called him a ghost, he answered back. If someone shoved him, he stepped in between. The school warned him many times. He was labeled aggressive. No one ever asked why he did it. Nights that make everyone equal. At home, at night, they slept in the same bed. The albino brother was afraid of the dark. The other said he wasn't afraid, but the truth was he was too. They slept holding hands, as if they were making a pact with the world. We are not without each other. They had created their own separate world where no explanations were needed. 7 years old and the label of weakness. At the age of 7, the albino brother's eyesight grew weaker. He always had to sit at the front of the class. Special glasses, protection from sunlight. The children began to say, "He's weak, he'll break." The black brother started carrying his back, sharing his lunch. He shared his pain without saying a single word. Small moments of happiness. Sometimes homemade games in the backyard. Sometimes quiet laughter when Saimai told stories. Every night she told stories of different characters who conquered the world exactly as they were. She never said anything directly, but both boys understood. Names, at last. One day, at a small family gathering, Saima decided the time had come. She said to everyone, "Today my children have names." The black child was named Imran. The albino child was named Rayan. Then she said the words that became part of both their lives. You were not born to be explained. You were born simply to exist. Adolescence and new trials. As adolescence arrived, the differences grew deeper. Rayan began avoiding going out during the day, shame of the light, fear of eyes watching. In his room, he spent hours listening to music, writing, things he showed no one. Imran had no peace either. In shops, he was followed. On the streets, he was stopped. He was seen as a threat. Two different pains, the same root. The fight. One night, they had a fierce argument. Rayan screamed, "I wish I had never been born. All of this is a mistake." Imran shouted back, "What do you know about being treated like a criminal just for existing?" Saima sat behind the door, listening to everything. She didn't go in. She knew this clash was necessary. The next morning they were found asleep on the couch, leaning against each other, exhausted, silent, but together. Anger was not bigger than the bond. Illness and responsibility. When they turned 15, Kamal fell ill. Years of hard work were demanding their price. The household fell into financial trouble. Both boys started working early. Imran helped at the market. Rayan did small jobs. Whatever money came in, it wasn't split in half. It belonged to everyone. During this time, Rayan began writing about pain, about identity, about not belonging anywhere, all of it locked inside a box. Imran kept dreaming. Education, college, the dream of proving himself, but everything felt very far away. The door of separation. At the age of 18, the moment arrived that both feared. Physical separation, not of the heart. Two separate bags in the same house. Saima stood watching from the doorway. Her heart already knew that nothing would ever be the same. The separation didn't happen with a grand scene. No tear-filled goodbyes, no big promises. Just, in the same house, two separate bags. Imran left first. He had secured a place in a technical course in a distant city. It wasn't his dream, but it was a door. On the day he left, he hugged Rayan longer than usual. He said only one sentence. "Don't let the world make you believe that you are less." Rayan smiled faintly. He had never trusted the world very much. Imran alone, and the same world. For Imran, the first few months were extremely hard. Sharing a room with strangers, working at night, studying during the day. Despite being alone, the same old prejudice followed him. Sometimes he was seen as a threat, sometimes watched with suspicion. One day, while returning from work, the police stopped him. He had done nothing, yet he was spoken to as if he were already a criminal. He came home, his hands trembling. He called his mother, couldn't speak. Then he called Rayan. Both remained silent for a long time. Sometimes, silence is the only language. Rayan staying behind. Rayan stayed at home. Kamal's condition worsened day by day. Saima began to look old before her time. Rayan took a simple job in a place with little sunlight. He avoided people, avoided questions, but he couldn't avoid the emptiness. In that silence, writing became his support. Every night, the pages filled. Stories that were not directly his, yet everything in them belonged to him. One post and everything changed. One day, without thinking, he anonymously posted a piece of writing online. He expected no reaction, but something happened. People began to write, "This is my story. I cried. You said what I never could." For the first time, Rayan was seen without being stared at. Time passed. Years went by. The phone calls became fewer, but more meaningful. When they met, time seemed to move a few moments backwards. The embrace still fit perfectly, but between them now lay an invisible distance, the experiences one had lived and the other had not. That morning. One ordinary morning, Kamal's heart fell silent. No speech, no warning. Imran rushed back home. Rayan stood frozen. At the funeral, people once again noticed the difference. The same comments, the same looks. Holding both their hands, Saima said, "The world may never understand you, but you understand each other. Don't lose that." The decision. After their father's death, Imran made a decision. Dreams could no longer be postponed. He took the college entrance exam and passed. It wasn't easy. Many times he felt like giving up. But he remembered Kamal's exhausted face and that look that seemed to say, "I won't always be here." That became his fuel. Rayan's voice. The encouragement he received online pushed Rayan to write more. One piece went viral. An editor reached out. "We want more, the full story." Rayan was afraid.
He didn't want to be seen, but he said yes. The book was published. There was no photograph in it. He didn't want to be looked at. He wanted to be understood. And people understood. They cried. They wrote letters. They said, "We are not alone anymore." For the first time, pain became a bridge.
The unexpected meeting was never part of any plan. It was a small hall, a simple stage, a few chairs, soft lighting. Imran had been invited to speak at a social initiative to young people whom the world had already labeled as suspicious or failures. On the same day, in the same place, Rayan had also been invited to speak about writing, identity, and self-acceptance. No one knew that they were two parts of the same story. The first glance. When they saw each other, time seemed to stop for a few moments. Applause was echoing, but they couldn't hear it. They embraced each other like children, an embrace that recognized not just time, but pain as well. The audience applauded without knowing what kind of moment they were witnessing. Truth on the stage. Without any planning, both of them began to speak, not as a medical mystery, not for curiosity, but as two human beings whom the same world had broken in two different ways. Silence filled the hall. People were crying. Some lowered their eyes. At the end, a child asked, "Are you proud of who you are?" Rayon took a deep breath. "I am still learning." Imran said, "Pride doesn't mean there is no pain. It means remaining human despite the pain." Something changed. After that meeting, something between them changed forever. Survival was no longer the only goal. Now they could create something. Imran started programs for young people. He talked less about education and more about dignity. Rayon slowly began to show himself. First small interviews, then larger platforms. Bright places still hurt his eyes, but now he didn't ask permission to enter them. In one interview, he was asked, "What is it like to be albino in a black family?" He answered simply, "I was never split between two worlds. I was always whole. The world just took time to understand." That sentence spread everywhere. A mother's gaze. Saima watched all of this from home. She remembered the nights when she had cried silently. Closed doors, tiny hands held tight. Now she was watching two men, gentle at heart yet strong. Together, they began workshops in schools. They didn't talk about race, color, or illness. They talked about identity and belonging. One meeting, one life. One day, a young albino girl came to them. She said, "I want to give up on everything. I feel like I'm a mistake." Rayon sat beside her. He showed her an old text he had written at 17 about wanting to disappear. He said, "This is me, before I understood that my existence itself is an answer." The girl cried, not because of a solution, but because she had been seen. Returning. Many years later, the two of them returned to their childhood home. The courtyard felt smaller. Old marks still clung to the walls. Saima sat on a chair watching her children in the same place where they had learned to protect each other. She smiled and said, "You endured everything that wasn't fair. That is victory." Ending. Today, when someone asks about the 1982 medical mystery, they are no longer unsettled. Not because they are no longer rare, but because they have understood. Rarity is not in color. Rarity is in remaining human. One black, one albino, both with blue eyes, both with unseen wounds.
and both decided that what came to break them would become a path for others. The end. This story was not about difference. This story was about courage. If you've reached this far, know this: you are part of this story too. Because sometimes someone else's truth leads us back to ourselves.